right, I think we're live. Still getting used to the setup here. What I should do is let's double check. Why don't I ask in the chat here? Can you guys hear me okay? Is we streaming through? Hear ya. All right. Thanks. Fractals are neat. So we have a couple of additions today. We have a moderator, so thank you very much. Fractals are neat. We also have Nightbot to do some basic chat commands and things like that. As you all are very well aware, I'm still kind of learning the ropes of this, so we'll kind of play it by ear and have some fun with it. All right. So with that, what do you say we pull up the fun part here? So we'll see. Hopefully the iPad holds today. All right. So first piece on here, let's talk about the stream. So hello and welcome. This week we're exploring Voyageurs National Park. So for those of you who haven't joined before, each week I'll pick a new national park to explore with you. We'll visit some of the big attractions, we'll talk a bit about the park, its history, and enjoy the beautiful views from the sky. For those of you with a copy of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, I've uploaded a flight plan for you to follow along, and I will post that in the chat now so you have it. Maybe I should lean on my moderator. Fractals are neat, do you mind posting that up? Just a second. All right, so a couple disclaimers while that's going out. First of all, we are ignoring some of the laws of flying around National Park, so don't try to go home. We're also ignoring many of the safety concerns with flying. We'll adhere to the laws of physics, but we're going to push it quite a bit. So we'll take full advantage of this later. Thank you, Fractals are neat. So that Google Drive link there has a... Oh, I have an echo. Okay, good. That's good to know. Thank you, 5024. Let me see what I can do about that. Alright, what about now? How's it working? Hello, hello, hello. Let me know if I still got that echo going. Otherwise, if you cover up one ear, it should go away. That's a bit true. Okay, so yes, I am a pilot, but we're going to be taking full advantage of the simulator today, so please don't try this in real life. A little bit more background. I've researched the park in preparation and ensured that all the information you hear tonight is added with sources to the National Park's Wikipedia page. I've then pulled the sources direct from the National Park to augment. There's still a little echoey. It sounds like other people are running the echo thing. Okay, hold on, let me see if I can figure out what's going on with that. Alright, we'll try a couple of things then. He pulled one ear off, if that's going to me. I'm trying to see if there's other sounds coming out. Doesn't make any sense. Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Is it two mics somehow coming through? Let me just try turning this all the way off. What about now? I hear this multiple screen inputs, not sure why the echo there isn't. That wasn't 2 minutes ago. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense either. We were doing some trial runs earlier. What do we think now? Okay, we're still there. Man, alright. The white noise stopped, it's still an echo. Ooh, okay. You tried screaming. Thank you so much. I won't put you through that. Okay, so let me think of what good options. How are we sounding now? I'm just playing with some of my settings on this. I'm guessing still an echo. Okay, so what I can do actually... How's that? I'm just going to take my headphones off. I don't think I need them for any reason. That's good. Okay, well, we'll blame it on the headphones then. Okay. Cool. So, but now you're very quiet. Okay. Let me see if I can turn up the volume a little bit here. How's that? A little bit better? If I turn on my speakers, you better not scream. That's right. As soon as everyone has their speakers turned up, then we'll raise the volume. I'm just kidding. I would never do that to you, just for the record. Okay, cool. So we'll roll with that then. So all this information, I did a bunch of research and then put it back into the Wikipedia page for the national park. And there's two reasons for this. One of them is it's the best possible way to make sure the facts are checked by others and to use it as a way of giving back to a living body of knowledge on the park. So to that end, if you notice anything in my stream that's incorrect or needs to be updated, please go to the Wikipedia page, make the change. There's a saying in the Wikipedia community, be bold. And really what that means is if you see something you can improve, whether it's grammar or facts or sources, just go ahead and make the change. That's how we keep it active and healthy. All right, so without further ado, I'm Jules Altus, and I'll be your pilot for this evening. And as always, thank you for being my co-pilot. Okay. Let's now hop to the park. Oh, quick, before I forget to mention, so this will be a stream that happens every Tuesday at 7 o'clock Pacific time, 7 to 8 o'clock Pacific time. Next week with Thanksgiving, I'll be taking the week off, as everyone in the audience goes, but you've only done 2 weeks. I know I didn't plan the holiday, but we'll be back the week after that. So I won't be streaming next week. Okay. So let's start off with a little bit of background here. First, we have the game up. Let's take a look at the national park map so we can all level set on kind of where we're going today. So this is what the park looks like. It's kind of got this odd shape, and it hugs the border of the northern border of Minnesota. And so if I hop on here, we can actually look around a little bit. Rainy Lake Visitor Center is one of 3 big visitor centers in the park. We're going to spend a little bit of time there, and we'll start off in this area, Little American Island and Rainy Lake Visitor Center. From there, we'll fly over across the northern part of the park, over to Anderson Bay, and then to the Kettle Falls Historic District, where we'll see the historic hotel in the area. From there, we're going to fly south. We're going to visit the Ash River Visitor Center, and then we'll finish up at the, and I've been practicing saying this, but bear with me if I get it wrong, Kabetogama Lake Visitor Center. And throughout the flight, as always, we'll talk a little bit about the facts about the park, some of the nature, history, geology, all the good stuff. All right. One of my goals for this stream is to be more engaged with the chat, so I'm attempting to keep up as you guys are talking about peanut allergies. So thank you very much for that. Okay, cool. So now we know a little bit about the park. Let's look at the actual flight plan. So the other piece that I'm going to try and do this week is actually show the iPad that I will use if I were to go flying on an actual trip. This is how I would do it. So I planned this plan using the kind of core software. We're going to be taking off from International Falls, which is just towards the northern border of Minnesota. And then we'll fly across the park just like I mentioned. So as we're flying, you should see the plane and where we are relative to the area. Let me tee that up so you can actually see the plane pop on there. Okay. So let's see if that comes through. Oop, discouraging. Hey, there we go. Okay, cool. So as you can see, we are at the end of runway 31. We'll be taking off. Okay. So, quick question for the chat. How many of you have, yeah, if your pilot is reading a chat as he's flying, it's probably not a good move. And you'll see me attempting to fly the majority of the time this time, which means one-handed flying a plane. Not the way to do it in real life, but we'll give it a go for you guys. So how many of you have been to Voyageurs National Park? Has anyone actually been up there? pull this up here so I can see. Okay, while we're giving the chat a second to respond, I'll start taking off here. So, quick moment on the plane itself. Today we're going to be taking the Icon A5. The Icon A5 is an amphibious plane, so we will have a little bit of, excellent, whoever is joining us on the runway here. So the Icon A5 is an amphibious plane, so we'll be able to do a little bit of land and sea action. I am not trained in how to fly an amphibious plane. I'm also not trained in how to fly a a seaplane, and so I'll be winging it and sort of applying what I know. All right, let's remove those parking brakes and take off here. So one of the big things when you're departing a runway is you want to keep the center line, this white line here, right in the middle of the plane. So I'm sort of working my rudder pedals back and forth to keep aligned so that when you take off, you're taking off directly in the center of the runway. This is a little plane on a bigger runway, which is nice. Oops. There you go. Okay, and we're past our rotation speed, so we'll kind of tee up here. So now as I'm taking off, I'm going to change my... So I'm actually taller than it would appear from this. So that's more what it looks like for me when I'm flying. So there's a couple of things I'm going to do now as I'm taking off. I'm going to bring my flaps back. So they were at 10. You can see that little knob turning in the background there. So I'm going to bring my flaps back. I also have my landing gear, so I'm going to grab my landing gear and bring that up. And that'll reduce drag, but also we don't need our landing gear. Where we're going, there is no land. A couple other things I'm going to do here. Actually, I'm just going to leave the rest of this the same. It's okay. We're doing a simulator. Okay, so let's see if we can get a little bit more altitude. So you can see, hopefully, oh, you guys have not been seeing my takeoff. Well, that was too bad. I'm sorry. At least the flight plan map. Yeah, thanks. Hannah, go poke check. That's so funny. Okay, so sorry about that. Thank you for reminding me. All right, well, anyway, so we've taken off. We're now climbing off to the area. So the first thing that I'm doing here is trying to get to my correct heading. So you can see the map a little bit in the corner. Had anyone been to Voyageurs? I was very curious. Not yet. Got some family. That's funny. Okay. So this is more or less my heading here. So while we're flying, I'm going to continue climbing. Let's see if we can trim this plane up a little bit. Okay. So what I'm doing now is I'm playing with the trim of the plane so that it continues flying itself without me having to do anything on it, which is how you would do it in a real plane. All right, let's talk a little bit about... Nice, thank you, Fractals are neat. Or approximately, thank you. That's a nice flight plan, though. Thanks, JS. Okay, so Voyageurs National Park. This is an American national park in northern Minnesota near the town of International Falls. It was established in 1975. The park itself commemorates the Voyageurs, which is where the spelling comes from, too. If I hadn't realized this before, but the spelling is not how you'd spell like Voyager, like the Voyager probe. And that comes from the French-Canadian fur traders, who were the first European settlers to frequently travel through the area. They'll come up a lot today. We'll talk about the French-Canadian fur traders. The park is notable for its outstanding water resources and is popular with canoeists, kayakers, other boaters, and fishermen, which is also why we are in an amphibious plane today. The Kabetogama Peninsula, which lies entirely within the park and makes up most of its land area, is accessible only by boat. So if I slide over on the map here, this landmass here, kind of in the whole center of the screen, is all accessible only by boat. And you'll see a little bit of how they set up the visitor center to make that work. In the east of the park, to the east of the park, lies the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness. The park has several boat ramps and visitor center on its periphery, though the main body of the park is accessible only by boat, or in the winter by snowmobile, ski, or snowshoe. It's mostly accessible by boat, except in the winter when you can cross a lot of the water. And in 2008, 2018, the park had about 239,000 visitors. A little bit of context on how big it is. I see a question in the chat about big difference between flying amphibious planes and normal planes. Like I said, I haven't done formal training in them. My understanding from reading is that it's all the same fundamentals. The biggest thing is when you're taking off and landing. And so I actually tried to do, a little bit of practice beforehand. Nice. Hi, Xbox Master. I tried to do a little bit of practice beforehand to get your landing gears down, Xbox Master. So I tried to get a little bit of a sense of what difficulties are with it. And it sounds like the biggest thing is when you're taking off, if there's waves, the boat can start to skip across the water. And if it starts to skip at the wrong frequency, it's hard to control it. And then the boat can flip. The seaplane can flip. And so there's this process of sort of like kind of plowing through the water until you get up above the water. And then you're supposed to be able to take off from there. You'll see me attempt a couple of landings today. The biggest thing I found, though, is it just takes a long time to slow down. And you, at least in this plane, don't really have brakes, not like you would on land. Someone didn't pay attention to biology. Nice, fractals are neat. Okay. I don't know the hatchet reference, unfortunately. Otherwise, I would comment, but I appreciate the engagement. Okay, so my microphone is right in front of my show notes, which in retrospect was pretty bad foresight. So let me slide that over a little bit. Okay, that should work. Nope, that's not gonna work. All right, that's fine. I'll just keep bopping my head around here. Okay, so as you can tell from the land kind of all around us, the entire area is tons and tons of lakes. So this big section right here is Rainy Lake, and it actually covers a significant portion. So I'll pull up the iPad again real quick and you can see what I mean. So you'll notice, I don't know, let me know in the chat if it's clear enough to read. But there's Rainy Lake. Rainy Lake covers a ton of area on here. So you can see it all the way up kind of in the top here, as well as through most of the park. We're going to be, the northern part of the park is Rainy Lake. And so if you look around, then you can see that it's just miles and miles of water. And so you can imagine as a Voyager going through the park, this would be a pretty incredible area to be going around. Which then brings us to our first little segue piece here. So as we're flying to our first destination, which is Little American Island, let me pull up what a Voyager is. So you may have seen this photo in your textbooks if you took American history courses. If you're from another country and haven't, this is kind of the classic image of what at least I was raised with, of what a French-Canadian fur trader would be like. So that kind of idea. Okay, I'm going to quick double check that I can actually still fly this plane. Okay, cool, we're still doing well. Is something that if you go to the park, and you should, you will be able to experience as part of their Voyageurs activity thing. So activity engagement. You're showing the map, not the plane. Okay. So hopefully you're seeing now a browser window. Let me know if you can hear the audio. I'm hoping that it just works, but
One wants to be a Voyager. It is a fantastic life. The things you see, the adventures you have. Not everyone can be a Voyager who wishes to be a Voyager. It is a life of hardship in addition to being a life of great adventure. Do you have any special skills? Voyagers, avant! You must be strong to be the Voyager. Do you know what it is to be a Voyager?
So we will paddle.
Voyagers, salute!
We're gonna party, of course.
Here at Voyageurs National Park, we preserve over 60 miles of the historic waterways that were traveled by the Voyageurs. Come and join us for a North Canoe program and experience the life the Voyageurs lived over 200 years ago.
All right, so there you go, a little taste of the Voyagers. Um, One of the other things, I was looking into this earlier, um, and oops, totally missed my destination here. So we're going to do a quick 180. We'll come in from a different angle. Um, so I was doing a little bit of research on the Voyagers, and I was thinking to start the flight stream off like when they got up in the morning, like, oh, we're Voyagers, we're gonna go get up at the same time, and it's like 3:30 in the morning, and everything is just gross, and it honestly sounds really terrible. So, um, very very pleased to be flying in the middle of the day instead. Okay, so our first destination here is this little green island on the right. Um,
Sync rate. Sync
Oop.
rate.
you probably heard that. So that is the warning that you'd get in an airplane as well if you did a dive like that.
500.
Okay, yeah. We'll see if I can turn down the volume on that. So this first island, a little American island, is actually a piece of history in the island, which is fascinating. So I had no idea, but the area of Voyageurs National Park, actually, Denver, okay, yeah, nice. Yeah, the feathers are excellent. Let me catch up in the chat real quick. Honestly, the whole setup is really pretty excellent. Okay, so Voyageurs National Park, part of it in there is this history involving the gold rush, in that there was gold discovered on Little American Island, and because of that, a bunch of people came and settled the town of Rainy Lake City, which is just across the way from there. And I have totally disoriented myself real quick, so I'm gonna spin around and attempt to both slow down the plane and land and narrate. And this is a skill that I will develop over time, but let's see if we can pull off a landing here. Okay. Oop, that's pretty fast. So that's not what you want to do. Okay, so that island off to our right is Little American Island. And so, okay, now we put down our water rudder so that you can actually steer. Oop, remember I mentioned the skipping across the water is a bad thing? Okay. Oh, we'll see what happens. Woohoo. All right, that's fine. Okay, so apologies, I'm lost my place as I was attempting to land that. Okay, so Little American Little American Island. So this island was the first place where gold was discovered in the park, and it has a man by the name of George Davis in 1893 discovered a small gold-bearing quartz vein. Okay, so Little American Island is just off that direction. I'm gonna speed up here a little bit. Nice. Is a good landing attempt. Makes me feel better about mine. Thanks, Xbox Master. And so what ended up happening was that they bought the land rights for it and named the island Little American Island. The Little American discovery is what gave rise to the island's name, which is Little American Island. So when they confirmed the discovery, then they bought the rights to the island to go and mine there, and then set up a town across the way that was kind of a gold rush boom town. There were a lot of prospectors then who entered the park searching for gold. In the end, there are 13 different sites which were mined. Most of them, or all of them, in the northern part of the park, and of which we're going to visit. Ooh, hi there. Of which we're going to visit Little American Mine. So one of the things that they mention is if you go to the park, you can actually still see kind of the original mine entrances. So this is Little American Island up to the front. I did go and explore the island while I was prepping for this, just to see if it was worth spending time over and around there, and it's cool. I would go and check it out in real life. I think it would be neat. In the game, it just doesn't come across as, like, it doesn't have the mine shaft visible or any of that kind of stuff, which is the kind of cool part. But let's pull up this real quick. Okay, oops. All All right, I'm simultaneously trying to accelerate and pull away from here. Those of you who were here last week will remember that I did most of it through a mechanism that the game calls slewing. We just kind of shoot your way across the map. So I'm attempting to not to, but afterwards I'll send out a little feedback form, and I would love to know if that was more nauseating or less nauseating or more enjoyable. That's the kind of feedback I want to know. Okay, so let's slow down here. So I'm putting my flaps on full, and I'm trying to slow the plane down, so that's going to increase my drag. Hopefully bring me in for a nice soft landing. Just off of our nose then is the Rainy Lake Visitor Center. So let me pull up real quick a couple of pictures of this so we can see what it looks like. Oops, okay. We are on the water. Okay, there we go. So this is you rounding the corner. And I mentioned a little bit at the beginning, but this entire park is primarily accessed via water. So unlike most national parks where you would access by motor vehicle, bicycle, or foot, in Voyageurs, you'd use things like kayaks or canoes. People often rent houseboats, and you can spend some time floating around the houseboats. They have little places that you can park for the evening. And you can also take guided tour boats. So when you go, consider taking one of the park's guided tours. Okay, so right here is kind of the point of Rainy Lake Visitor Center. Hopefully you guys can see okay. Oops. And I'm going to check the chat because I keep forgetting to do that. And that was one of the goals here. Oh. It controls a little bit like a jet ski, the Icon A5, which is, oh, you guys haven't kind of seen it, but it's pretty fun actually as it's flying across the water in the game. So let's see if we can slow down here. So this then is the Rainy Lake Visitor Center. I'm about to beach myself on this, but I'm going to show you something actually from the sky. So this little thing, the game doesn't quite capture it, but instead it projects on the ground that dock where there's a boat. So when you go and visit, this is where you would go and pick up one of the guided tour boats. Show you a little bit of what this looks like. So we just beached ourselves. Look at how smooth that was. So if you were looking off in some of these directions, this is the kind of thing that you might see. So like that's kind of what the lake looks like, to get just a general sense. Oh, I didn't check the chat. I said I was going to check the chat, and then I didn't. Whoever said this is Spirit, you were spot on. I am very offended. Is gold in Minnesota? There is gold in Minnesota. Interesting, right? Yeah. I didn't know that either. There were a couple of active gold mines and a gold rush. Yeah. Yeah, houseboats are excellent. Hey, what's up, Scott? All right, so that's one of them. The other one that I wanted to show you is just a view of the visitor center. I tried really hard to find a good photo of it, and there was nothing that was public domain and something that I could actually add to Wikipedia. This is the best one that I was able to find. If you go and look on like Google Maps or something like that, you can see some more clear ones. And especially what you can see is, I'll flip back to this. Nice. Good landing there. Especially what you can see, turn around here is, all right, I'm going to pop into slew mode real quick so you can actually see around. Oh, that's the visitor center off in the woods right there. So you can see it sort of in the background. And this is the dock, as I mentioned. There's then places to park your boat, because everywhere you go is by boat, just over here. So you park your boat, you walk up. This is where the national park sign is, and a lot of activity areas and things like that. So, all right, let's keep moving on then. So let's see if we can unbeach ourselves with sheer force of will. Maybe we should take our water rudder off and see if that gives us a little less hooking into the ground. Yeah, see, Xbox Master had a much better setup here. Okay, and now we're cheating, and now we're done. Okay. Cool. So let's rev that engine and get ourselves going. Okay, so I'm looking for. I'm watching my airspeed, which is the. Here, I'll try and zoom in on here real quick. You can kind of see which one I'm looking at. So I'm looking at the airspeed here, and I want it to hit 50 knots, and then I'm going to rotate. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm taking off from water, which is 45 knots. So I'm going to get to about there, and hopefully I can just take off. Let's see how that works. Okay, so again, got to get to my height view, otherwise everything looks so weird. All right, let's keep flying. So, there's a plane animation close to the real thing. Okay, so my heading's a little off here. Now, if I was doing this for real in a real thing, what I would real flight, what I would do is I would pull up my navlog here, and it would actually tell me the heading that I'm supposed to go. We could do that here. It's a little bit of overhead for something that in the real world is super important, because otherwise you can accidentally get lost. But in the flight sim, it's a simulator, so that's okay. That is an excellent question. I don't know if I try not to use people's real names in case they don't want to have that information in a record. But it's a good question. One of the I won't go there. Actually, I'm going to drop it. Okay, so our next stop along the way then is Anderson Bay. So this is going to be quite a ways down the map. We're going to decide as we get going how much. Now we're gonna slew over there. This is our longest leg, and part of the reason I want to do that actually is to look at the size of Rainy Lake from the sky, which I think is pretty incredible. So as you're flying over, you can see where we just came from down there at the end of the roads, and then all of this that you're seeing is Rainy Lake. And then our next destination point is just down the way, which again is Anderson Bay. So I'm going to zoom in here. You can kind of see what the land looks like. All right. So make myself positioned in here. So Anderson Bay is a highly recommended destination point for a couple of reasons. Let me talk a little bit about it. So one of the big ones is that it's a really good example of why they made this into a national park. So the bluffs in the bay, so this area that we're just about to fly into here, or boat, I guess, into, rise about 80 feet above the water. And then from the top there, you can see the bay, and then you can see Rainy Lake. It's the northern trailhead for the Cruiser Lake Trail System. So if you wanted to go hiking in the park, which I would highly recommend, this is a good entry point and a good one to go in and check out. Yeah, those are the kind of the key couple things about Anderson Bay. Oops, okay, so I got to turn on, for those of you who have ever attempted to sail without a rudder, that's what's going on now, which is that I have no control and a lot of drift going on. Ooh, look at that landing. I'm going to be an expert by the end of this. Okay, so let's see if I can slow this down just a little bit. So those are our attempt at a bluffs recreation in the game. It's not the greatest, but it's okay. If you look up pictures of Anderson Bay, it's really pretty nice, especially in the fall. One of the other things that I want to talk about at Anderson Bay is that the geology of Voyageurs National Park is very interesting. So it's located on the Canadian Shield, and the rocks in the park average between 1 and 3 billion years old. This makes them some of the oldest rocks in the North American continent. Let me check the chat real quick before I forget. If I can be a tricky bird. Yeah, I can be a tricky bird. Thank you, EJ4. Okay, so the rocks themselves were formed during the early ages of the Earth's formation. The rocks in the park were compressed, folded under tremendous pressure. Then molten flows of lava intruded through the layers, creating a mosaic of various, I think it's pronounced gneiss, Gneiss, and granites. Over time, additional layers of sedimentary rock developed on top to be stripped away by the continental glaciers of the Wisconsin glacial epoch and earlier. So you had a lot of early rocks, a lot of pressure, and then glacial motion that came and carved out a lot of the area. One of the things that they mention about the park is that you'll see, I believe they're called glacial, I don't want to get this wrong, glacial erratics. And glacial erratics are like when a glacier, the moving ice picks up a giant boulder and then just kind of leaves it randomly as it melts. Nope, you're landing gears down. That's going to be tough. Okay, so this is Anderson Bay. We can kind of do a little look around. And so they're all over, but they're also in the lakes. And so you can be, like where I am right now, and all of a sudden there's a 30-foot boulder. I don't know if 30 foot's maybe too tall, but like 15-foot boulder underneath you that you wouldn't have any idea about, and it can hit your boat and cause some pretty serious damage. So you just need to be aware of that if you're going to go boating, when you're going to go boating. Other interesting things, there's a lot of fascinating geology in the park. Increasingly, as I get into this stream, I'm realizing that I need to go and get myself a geology, textbook. The greenstone belt in the area is what causes the creation of gold, so that's why there's parts of the park with the gold rush. And what else? Those are kind of the big ones that I want to talk about with geology. Rock and roll all night. I can't believe I just sang on a microphone. Excellent reference. Okay, so we'll leave it there for geology. Let's say we get ourselves rolling again. And our next stop on our adventure today is Kettle Falls Hotel in the Kettle Falls Historic District. So, take a guess at my heading. Oops. Okay. Well, I'm not going quite as fast as I want, and I have a lot of flaps. So we'll see if that comes through here. Okay, so the Kettle Falls Historic District, we talk about it a little bit on our way. So this is an area of the park that is very unique for a couple of reasons. But actually, I'm going to pull up here so you can see what I'm talking about. So when I go to the iPad here, you notice that the Minnesota border kind of has this weird, funny shape to it. And specifically at Kettle Falls, it actually hooks over Canada. And so Kettle Falls Hotel is one of the few places in the country where you can look south from the United States into Canada. And I knew at some level that Minnesota had a weird northern border, but I'd never really thought about it. Not like where did that come from, or like why would they ever choose that sort of thing. So what I ended up finding out is that the entire border. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Yeah, I am going to talk about this now. Okay, let me make sure I didn't miss anything on Kettle Falls Hotel super quick, just to make sure that it's covered. Constructed in 1910. It's on the National Register of Historic Places. And it can only be reached by boat in the summer months. And again, it's one of the few places that looks south. So we're gonna fly over to it right now. So let me show you what the destination is. I know, right? I remember learning about it in 8th grade in Duluth. Yeah, I feel like 8th grade is about right. So this is the Kettle Falls Hotel. So when you go and visit, that's where you'll be staying. And a winter pic from the sky, that's kind of what it looks like from an aerial photo. The park has a bunch of aerial photos, actually, if you're curious to see what it looks like when the ice comes out or goes in. They have photos of all that kind of stuff. So, all right, let's go back to the actual flight sim here. Okay, so let's talk more about that border. Actually, let me ask in the chat, okay, hold on. That's an excellent SpongeBob reference. Thank you. Zoom. Is this a boat? Anything can be a boat? Yeah. What is a boat? Okay, so let me ask in the chat real quick. So we probably you're aware that Minnesota has this kind of this weird area that goes farther north than anywhere else in the country. It's called the North Angle. Does anybody know why there's the North Angle in Minnesota? Here, I'll show you the part of the state I'm talking about. It's like this kind of part that just goes up really pretty weird around the Lake of the Woods. I'll give the chat a second to respond. You can do the shorthand version too if you happen to know the summary of why. Okay, so while people are responding to that, we are now coming up on your right, on our right. That little red building in there is the Kettle Falls Hotel, and then just off to the front is the Kettle Falls Dam and Kettle Falls, and where you would go if you're gonna go visit Kettle Falls. So let's see if I can pull off here. There you go. So there's the hotel as it's in the sim. It's not the greatest recreation, but it's okay. Okay, so attempt to really pull this around. All right, anyone got it? As long as the way to the place is more than the okay, we're still talking about boats. That's okay. In next stream, we'll highlight that. Actually, the because that's how the tectonic plates aligned. That's a fair answer, actually. Like following the tectonic plates, it's a pretty good guess. And it kind of has that shape. Oh, I wasn't showing the hotel. Oh, sorry guys. Okay, well we'll fly back around it. That gives us an excuse to do a second pass. So the guess that it just follows the tectonic plate, that's a pretty solid guess. Okay, so right off the front of our airplane, you can see the Kettle Falls Dam, and then the Kettle Falls Hotel is that kind of red building set back in the woods a little bit. So if you want to go and stay, if I remember correctly, this is the last lodging still in the park. Okay, so there you go. That's where it is. Anyone else? Jack map. Yeah, that's really. I need like a little beeper or something. So he got lost. Nice. Zoom. Excellent. Okay, so zoom is pretty much right on the money. So this sort of this weirdness going on at Northern Angle, we'll talk about first, is actually a result of the Treaty of Paris of 1783. And so just to level set, this is what we're talking about now. And let me see if I can pull up a photo of what I'm talking about. So this is what they thought the Lake of the Woods looked like. And so you can see when they're signing the Treaty of Paris, which is deciding the border between, so this is the end of the Revolutionary War, and the British are talking with the Americans about where they're going to draw the boundary between what later became Canada, but Great Britain and the United States. And this was a conversation that happened at the Treaty of Paris of 1783, I believe was the year. And this is the map that they had to use. And so basically what they said is, okay, well, why don't we say that the border is going to be the northwest corner of Lake of the Woods, and draw a line west until it hits the Mississippi River. But as zoom totally new, it's kind of blocked by a legend, and so you can assume that it goes that far north, but actually you'd be totally wrong. So being the Mississippi River, yeah, exactly. Northwest Triangle is thought to be the beginning of the Mississippi River. That's right. You totally got it. SO. Okay, so what is the map app that I use? The one that I'm using on the iPad? If the question is the one on the iPad, it's ForeFlight. There's a couple of other ones that people like that you can, if you're looking for options. I really like ForeFlight. There's definitely a couple of ones that are pretty good though. Okay, let's make sure that I haven't driven this plane into the ground. Oh no, I did. Okay, well, we're gonna come back to that then. That's fine. We'll recover from that in a minute. Okay, so the other piece of this though is that Lake of the Woods. So they thought that it was this kind of like circular shape, and they said it'll be the northwest corner and draw it west to the Mississippi. Okay, well, two things wrong with that. One of them is the actual shape of Lake of the Woods is like this. And so not only is it weird, but it's weird and it's got this weird long top tip part. And so they had this whole conversation about, okay, well, what counts as the northwestmost corner? And they basically decided that it was this thing. But as you also probably know, the Mississippi River doesn't go to the border of Minnesota. It doesn't go all the way that far north. It ends at Lake Itasca. And so they said, okay, well, drawing it west to the Mississippi River isn't going to work. And so later on, they came back with another treaty, I think it's called Jay's Treaty or Jay Treaty. And that's where they decided, like, okay, well, then just take the northwest corner, drop it south till you hit the 49th parallel, and call it good. And so that's how we ended up with this sort of weird upper piece, the northern angle or northwest angle. Okay, so a little fun fact history for you. The other piece of it that I thought was fascinating is this is what this looked like when you're looking at the treaty. So this is the kind of the Treaty of Paris, and it gave this piece of the land up in the top left that later became Minnesota. That border, though, is still very odd and jagged, especially because, like, if you were going to pick a border, why not just pick one that's a straight line or something along those lines? So it turns out that the choice of border was all based around the French-Canadian fur traders, the Voyageurs. And so the same namesake as the park, oops, my plane is all flipped around. The same namesake as the park is also the reason that Minnesota has its border that looks the way it does. It's because this is the way that the Voyageurs would navigate through. This was their standard route when they were going from, I had this written down earlier. Let me see if I can quick pull it up. Oh, it's fine. But when they were doing their fur trading routes, in between, that was the way that they would take. And so they kept that same route, and that became the Minnesota northern border. So, but that's also why it kind of follows along the center of some of these big lakes and wraps around things. Okay, nice little history sidebar here. So our next destination is the Ash River Visitor Center. So I'm going to orient the plane here and see if we can keep flying. I can't tell if it's Wilhuff, but did that answer your question about the map app? Hopefully that's kind of what you're curious about. All right, so one of the other questions I had for the chat, so get those keyboards ready, is with a park that's so water-based, what is your favorite water activity? If you're going to go out to the lake or the ocean, what is your preference? I always forget that the chat takes a minute longer, and so I'm gonna... Nice, Xbox Master. You're getting the hang of that. So while you guys are responding on your favorite water activity, fractals are neat. Are we able to do like a poll or something? Can people submit their own answers? I don't know. We're playing with some of the chat options. So I'll turn this back a little bit. Okay, so our next stop here is the Ash River Visitor Center. So let me show you a little bit about what that looks like. The Ash River is one of the 3 visitor centers in the park. It is this Meadwood Lodge. So it has this kind of look to it. So that's the kind of vibe that you get. It's also based on the water. It's accessible by the road, but of course your first thing you'd want to do is launch your boat from there. Or your rental. Kayaking all day, excellent. Kayaking is also one of my favorites. Drowning avoidance, also one of my favorites. I was a lifeguard for a while, and that was the name of the game. Ice skating. Ice skating's a clever answer, Pickle760, and also very fun. So the entire park will freeze over in the winter, some winters, and so there's a ton of winter activities we'll talk about in just a minute. Water skiing, yeah, I'm a big water skiing fan. Yeah, it's a little cold for swimming, but yes, that's also a good one. It goes hand in hand with the drowning avoidance. And this may be a story I was told as a lifeguard, but apparently the training that they give for lifeguards in Switzerland is that if you have someone who's drowning, the first thing that you do when you reach them is you hit them really hard behind the back of the head to knock them unconscious. Because it's very easy to save someone who's drowning. It's just very hard to deal with the person because they're like flailing and panicked. And so it's a controlled knockout blow and then gently bring them back to shore. I wouldn't try that at home either, but yeah, there you go. That was not how I was taught, for the record. But okay, oops. I have not been trimmed up at all for flying, which is why this has been a very, very slow meander over, but that's okay. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the Ash Visitor Center. One of the things I wanted to mention, the campgrounds in Voyageurs National Park are maintained by the National Park Service, and they are accessible only by water. There's 282 sites, and they're either front country or back country tent, houseboat, or day use sites. They're all designated by signs. There's permits that you need for overnight stays, but you can get them if you want to go up and do that. One of the things that I thought was really pretty cool is the National Park Service has photos of all of the campsites on their website. And so if you were thinking to go and check it out, which you should, you can go and kind of peruse the different options you have for campsites and see what the angles are, what the fire pit setup looks like, all that kind of stuff, all the important stuff. All right, so you can kind of see we're coming up onto our Ash River Visitor Center here. See if we can do a landing. Oops. All right. Slowing the plane down, and you'll see that I'm going to drop my flaps to 10. That's to slow us down. And then full flaps. And again, I'm sort of winging this, but basically the idea when you're landing a plane is that you hover the plane, you come in slow enough that you can land in a reasonable amount of time, and then you kind of hover the plane just above the ground. Not like I'm doing it, like you hover the plane just above the ground and let it continue to slow down. And at some point, the wings can no longer support the plane. And when that happens, then the plane will just settle itself onto the ground or the water in this case. So the whole idea is just sort of like this steady hold off, and then the plane just rests itself on the ground. If you're flying Spirit, of course. Actually, there are some airlines, I make fun, but there are some airlines where they suggest a much firmer landing. So there's also some airlines that are willing to do runways that are shorter than other airlines would be willing to do. So, everyone has their different reasons. So. Okay, so this is the Ash River Visitor Center. This is not a great view of it, but we can do this real quick and actually pop out. Oh, okay, we got to pull up. Thank you, Fractals are neat. What did check? That's so funny. Thanks, Fractals are neat. And my bad motto was water skiing for, okay, houseboats are the best with the side off the back. Yeah, that is true, SO. That is very true. You got to get the slide off the back of the boat. Otherwise, are you even really houseboating? Okay, so we'll take a quick peek at the park. So you can see that there's this public ramp that comes in. So if you want to let your boat in, you can. The actual visitor center, if I remember correctly, is in the woods over here, and I don't remember it showing up very well in the game. So that's why I pulled up that picture of the meadowway. Talked a little bit about camping. I want to talk a little bit about flora and fauna. So the park is has two classifications of plants. Great Lakes spruce fir vegetation type with the northern conifer form. This is a little bit beyond my knowledge of plants, but the other type then is the Great Lakes pine vegetation type with the northern conifer form. So the national park itself is home to timber wolves, black bear, moose, white-tailed deer, fox, beaver, and in the winter you can see them crossing the frozen lake and looking for tracks in the snow. There's also bald eagles, loons, owls, warblers, some of the common birds. One of the ones that I stumbled on while I was prepping for this is this is what the park ranger who took the photo had to say about it. So, photo was taken October 2nd, 2002. Park employees last saw the eagles drying out on separate rocks out of sight of each other. Park biologist Lee Grimm theorizes that the eagles began a territory dispute in the air and carried it into the water. So what you're seeing here is photos of two eagles fighting in the water. Let's see if I can get this a little bit bigger here. No, it's as big as it goes. And I was flipping through these, and it is honestly incredible to watch these two birds just really having it out in the water. We got MR saying, are motors allowed throughout the park, or is it restricted in some places like BWCA? That is an excellent question. I don't have an answer for you. I have a theory, and I can explain why. My guess is that they aren't allowed at all. And the reason for that is that there's a lot of controversy over the fact that snowmobiles are allowed. And so my theory would be that they are not allowed in the park. But I'm not sure. And that would be a great one to check out. And the park website has a ton of resources about that, kind of like what's allowed and not allowed. Okay, the last one that I wanted to show you is the most memeable photo I've found in several years. And so it just really feels like this is waiting to become some sort of like, I don't know, come at me type meme. So anyway, if you're looking for that link, you have to get it. Okay, we're allowed throughout the park. Oh, fractals are neat covering it. Heck yeah, thank you. Look at that moderator action. Best muskie fishing in the U.S. Nice fun facts. Thank you, fractals. I need to keep that up. Okay, let's go back to the live stream then. Talked a little bit about the park. Okay, so next up we're going to Kabetogama Visitor Center. I think I've got that pronunciation down okay, although, and apparently there's variations on the pronunciation, so maybe I shouldn't beat myself up about it. All right, so now we're taking our way off along the Ash River. This is a bit of a leg, and we have about 2 minutes left here, so let me change some stuff up here. A little bit about the climate of the park. So it's classified as a humid continental climate with mild summers and dry winters. It's got the coldest months averaging below 0, all months averaging below 71, and at least 4 months that average below 50. That's kind of the definition of it. The park itself has a ton of winter activities, and so we're going to actually change up our flight here a little bit and play with the simulator some. So not only can we introduce snow, but we can introduce snow cover. So let's see if we can get some of these, some of the ground here. So now if you look out our window, I was hoping that they would have frozen lakes in the simulator, but no such luck. But as you look around, you can see at least kind of the spirit of what a snowy Voyageurs National Park might look like. And for the, I think it was Pickle something who was talking about ice skating. I mean, talk about a great place to go ice skating. And so they do a couple of things actually in the winter. One of them is that they plow Rainy Lake to make an ice road. And it's marked from the Visitor Center boat ramp heading toward Cranberry Bay or around Dryweed Island, depending on the conditions. So you can do lake driving, snowmobiling, cross-country skiing, winter camping. You can do ice fishing, snowshoe hiking, all those kinds of things. Snowmobiling is limited to the frozen lake surfaces. And like I mentioned earlier, it's a little bit controversial on if that's something that they really want in their national park. Let me show you this photo real quick. Oh, this is the... oh, sorry, we haven't gotten there yet. So we are still flying to... Oops. This is the Rainy Lake Road. So you can kind of see at least a little bit of what it looks like. It's, if you've seen an ice road before, it's not all that exciting, but it's kind of cool if you've never driven on a frozen lake. Would recommend. Another one for you. This is the Rainy Lake area, and I noticed when I was prepping this, there's a little airplane parked in the side, so that's always a good sign. All right, let's flip back to the game here. Make sure that we're still on our course more or less. Ooh, and we are not. This is why you don't use web browsers while you're flying a plane. No hating, just moderating. Excellent, JS. I guess interpreted as boats, not snowmobiles or four-wheelers. Yeah, I meant boats, but interesting about the snowmobiles too. Yeah. You know, if you drive your snowmobile fast enough, that actually is a thing. I would not recommend it because apparently it's incredibly dangerous, but people do. Oh, you can see a rainbow off to the side. Look at that. Wonderful. Nothing like a simulated double rainbow. But you can take your snowmobile. You shouldn't take your snowmobile across water really fast so that it skids across the water. But if you were going to do that, you would do it on a river, and then you would go across fast enough that your snowmobile doesn't sink. And then you would race your buddies while you're doing that, because that is definitely the... It's a way to go. It's a way to go. I don't know if it's the way I'd want to go, but you know, it's something that you could write home about. All right. So last time I was attempting to be incredibly punctual in my stream. I have since learned that many streamers go very, very long. I will still try not to go too much longer beyond my 8 o'clock end time here, but we'll finish up here. So we're on to our last destination of Kabetogama Lake Visitor Center. Yeah, so whoever was saying that it's a gorgeous park, it is a gorgeous park. I was reflecting that, like, now 2 national parks in, I finished and I was like, this has to be a place to go. Yeah, gotta go. See you in 2 weeks. Honestly, yeah, if I could. Yeah, it really does look beautiful. And I'm getting the sense that probably every national park that I stream, I'll have this feeling of like, oh yeah, that seems like a beautiful place to go. But yeah, definitely for the first 2. Anything else? Oh, I did have another question for the stream. Let's see, for the chat. What is the most recent national park that you went to? So I'll post that in there as we're pulling up to our last destination here. What is the most recent national park? A lot of whistling in there, but most recent national park that you've visited. All right, and while the chat is answering, I'm gonna attempt to land this plane. Coming in pretty hot. Okay, a little bit of snaking back and forth. I saw a question about flying the Icon versus other general aviation planes. You know, I've flown 4 different types of planes now, and they were all pretty standard sort of training planes, so it's not quite that. But the biggest thing that stood out to me about the Icon is it's very nimble. Like the description I heard at one point is like sort of like a jet ski, and I think that's really accurate. It's like it's very easy to maneuver. It honestly seems like it's really fun plane. which, you know, and people take it out for day trips and stuff like that all the time because I suspect it's just a blast. Okay, I think I'm on the wrong side of this little inlet, so we'll see how we navigate out here. Oops. Okay, we beached the plane. You don't want to do that either. LL Zion, MU, MM, Carlsbad Caverns. That's on my list. Say hello to your cat for me. Muir Woods. I don't know if Muir Woods is a national park, although it's definitely a gorgeous place to go and visit. All right, so we're going to reposition ourselves here slightly and pull in as we were meant to. Okay, so this is when you're pulling into Kabetogama Lake Visitor Center. And this will be our last destination then of the flight. So I'll pull up a picture real quick. You guys can see a little bit of what it looks like. Oops. Okay. Share that up. So that's the visitor center. And you can see kind of the spiritual incarnation of that. It's not quite accurate, but it's getting there. Oh, all right, we're gonna skip over this land, and we made it. Excellent. Okay. We're gonna end up beaching this. Yep. Oh, okay. Well, there you go. So don't park your icon on the snow. It's probably not good for the hull. Yeah, your cat wanted to answer. I was looking at MU and I was going like, MU, is that like a really common national park abbreviation? Like, where did I miss that along the way? So, okay, let's pull ourselves up here. Then we can fly around a little bit through our double rainbow effect. Okay, so that's Kabetogama Lake Visitor Center. So we learned a little bit today about the park. We learned some of the history, talked about the gold mines, the fur traders, talked about where the name comes from, the Voyageurs, and then also why the border of Minnesota is the way it is, and how it relates to Voyageurs National Park. We talked a little bit about the geology of the park and visited Anderson Bay. Talked a little bit about the great activities to go and do up there, the hiking, the boating, the winter sports, anything that you want to do while you're there. And I think that that does it for Voyageurs National Park. So let me flip to a sign off here because it's not a complete edutainment stream if it doesn't have a cheesy sign off. All right, we'll kind of angle ourselves back in here as we make our way back to Rainy Lake Visitor Center. All right, well, that's all for today. There's a survey that I'll post in the chat in just a moment. Actually, let me do that now so that I don't, like last time, forget and then need to ping anyone I can think of. I very much appreciate your comments. Maybe I should have my moderator do this. Ooh. Very much appreciate your comments. They're very helpful, and I will take them into account planning these ones. Planning future streams. So let me know what you like, what you didn't like, things you'd like to see more of. And yeah, a reminder that next week I won't be streaming. We'll be taking a break for Thanksgiving, and I will be back the week after that. So mark your calendars. It should be a good December stream. Okay, so again, the survey post in the chat. Go ahead and load that up. Appreciate all the input. So yeah, that's all for today. Cheesy sign-off time. In a world full of adventures, I'm glad I could share this one with you. So thank you for being my co-pilot. All right, bye everyone.